Hello and welcome back to KXAM Plus. I am your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and we are back with our Nick's First Warning weather show with KXAN meteorologist Nick Bannon. Nick, thanks for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to be in this new studio of yours, all set up and ready to go. The new cameras, the new gear. You must feel like a kid in a candy store,
The
Esme.
new graphics are probably my favorite part of all of this. And
Well,
we
it's
have
really nice.
your very own graphic right here.
Oh, there you go. It's my name and everything.
Name and everything. Well, Nick, we're going to start today's show with a look at the lake. What are we looking at on this live cam?
Yeah, so this is a live view from our Lake Travis Oasis restaurant camera, which will help to get us into our topic today, which is on the levels of our lakes and the projections from LCRA about where we expect our lake levels to go. And we're basically set up for all of this by what's happened in the past few months. Remember, we've been in a drought that's been continuing for months, if not technically years now. That drought continues, but we have come off the back of a wet May. May had more rain than normal. That is helpful for us. It did not cause a big rise in our lakes, but it did cause some lake level rise. Perhaps more importantly, it moistened up the soils that makes them more likely to cause runoff with additional rounds of rain that we're expecting here this week. But you saw how much rain we had this past May, 6.59 inches of rain. That was more than an inch and a half above where a typical May typically ends up. It was also our first wetter than normal month in more than 9 months, and we really needed it. Certainly a wet May does not erase all the dry months that we've had prior, but it was a good start. We also had a hotter than normal spring, which meant that more evaporation does not exactly bode well for our lake levels. So some mixed news there as far as the spring goes. Temperatures 4 degrees above normal actually made it our hottest spring on record. But at the same point, we had a slightly wetter than normal spring. So that May that was really wet did end up help skew the spring numbers to be slightly wetter than normal, but only by 15 hundredths of an inch of rain. So not really enough to make a big difference, but certainly a difference nonetheless. Now we look at our lake levels here, Lake Buchanan and Lake Travis. They're both rising, and they're both rising by a decent amount. Lake Buchanan, though, making more progress going up than Lake Travis has been lately. And we're actually seeing that Lake Buchanan's been up about 3 feet in the last month. Lake Travis up about 1.5 feet. So beneficial rises, yes, certainly better than the lakes going in the other direction. But what we really need is more heavy rain to fall in the hill country to get those lakes to rise more. And it's certainly a possibility that we get that here in just the next few days.
So our fun this summer in the lake depends on the rain that we will be seeing in the next few days, right?
Yeah, I don't want to put all our eggs in this week's basket, but it looks like our best chance for soaking persistent rainfall over the next couple of months may live in this week, because usually as we head through the second half of June, our rainfall expectations go way down, and August is a pretty dry month. So that's why here as we approach, what is it now, the 10th of June, as we approach the middle of June where our rainfall usually starts to drop off, it's very important that we get some decent rainfall here over the coming next few days, because we just don't know when that next round of wet weather is going to come. And as we get later into June and especially into July, the expectations for more rain usually go down. So that brings us to this. And that is the lake level forecasts that get released by LCRA every month. They release them at the beginning of the month, and perhaps Esme, you can get rid of our banner at the bottom there. I typically do this. I make graphics that are too big, and then they go from the bottom to the top. Some of the banners get in the way, but you can see the months there at the bottom of your screen, and then you can see the lake level combined storage for Lakes Buchanan and Travis added together. And what you can see there is that starts with last May, where the beginning of last May, the water levels were actually quite a bit lower than they have been here this May. So there was last May. We had some decent rain last May. Last May was actually wetter than normal as well. And the inflows combined with the extra rain helped to push us above that 1.1 million acre feet mark, which is an important threshold for drought contingency plans. And then we basically dropped a little bit into early summer. And then we got some more decent rain and storms into July and August that bumped us back up. And then we've sort of been dropping ever since. There was a little bit of a rise later in November, but then we've been dropping all the way through the winter into the early spring and now into the beginning of May and into early June even, before we've seen this more recent rise over the last couple of weeks. So it's been a consistent drop here over the last few months. But if we compare ourselves to where we were at the beginning of last May, we're still better off than we were, say, this beginning of this June to the beginning of last May. But the problem is the inflows into the lakes are not as good as they were last May. So we need way more rain to actually put those numbers up. And we are starting to see those rises. So now the question becomes, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to see our lake levels go into the future? And these are short-term projections from LCRA, and they basically give a variety of scenarios about, okay, so what level of rain are we going to get? Let's say, okay, if we got the top 25th percentile of wet weather conditions, what would that do to the combined lake levels? And you can see that's the top line here. It gets us over that 1.1 million acre feet mark, and then basically keeps us there through the summer. There's a little bit of a dip as more and more people use water for irrigation. And then we start to see more of a rise as less people use water through the fall and winter months, and as we usually get another wet season into the fall. So that's sort of one of the ideal scenarios. That's in the top quarter of wet years. That's what the 25th percentile means. So that means also 25% of years were wetter than this projection, but 75% of years were drier. So that's a decently optimistic view of what we can expect over the coming months is for those levels of rises. Now, median conditions, meaning half of the years were wetter than this expectation and half of the years were drier. It's not exactly equal to what average would be, but it's in the middle of years. And it generally holds the lake levels steady with a little bit of a summer dip as more people use irrigation for their backyards and things in the summer, and we get less rain anyway. And then a little bit of a rise as we head through fall and into the winter. That would not be terrible, but it would not in any way help to bring meaningful improvements in our lake levels.
Nope, it wouldn't.
Yeah, and then you look at these options here. 90th percentile of dry conditions, meaning only 10% of years were drier. And then the extreme dry conditions, 99th percentile, meaning only 1% of years were drier than this. And this is almost like the worst case scenario of where the lake levels could go as we head through July and into August and November. That would basically mean that the rain just about shuts off for the next few months with very little. And you could see we drop below another drought contingency level there of 750,000 acre feet. That enters the drought contingency plan of stage 3. So right now we're in stage 2, and we enter stage 3 once we drop below that 750,000 acre feet. So worst case scenario, or even one of the worst case scenarios, would get us down there.
Wow.
But we've still got some rain coming here next few days, and the rain may very well start to kick us on this wetter condition track, at least for a little bit, before potentially drier weather comes in as we head into the coming months. Now, a lot of people ask, okay, it's raining, great. What's that doing to the lakes? Well, as the folks over at LCRA would tell you, it all depends on where the rain falls and to what amount of rain falls. If you get lighter rain, it soaks into the soil, let's say over a longer period of time, and it never runs off into the streams and creeks that feed our rivers and lakes, then you don't really see the lake level rises. What you need is heavier rain in a shorter amount of time that causes a lot of runoff that feeds it into the lakes, less so into the soil, and that's what we would need. Now, we also need the soils to be moist enough to allow the water to run off into them, and that's sort of what we've been doing over the last month with wetter than normal conditions, is trying to moisten up the the soils a little bit. Still not to the point of being saturated. But you can see here we've got Lake Travis and Lake Buchanan. And all of this up here is the Lake Buchanan watershed. So all of the rain that falls in here works its way into the streams and creeks and rivers and works its way eventually down into the Colorado River that feeds into Lake Buchanan. And then this smaller area here helps to feed into Lake Travis. Of course, if Lake Buchanan were full and we continued to get rain up here, then we would find more rain from up in the Lake Buchanan watershed, eventually working its way down into the Lake Travis watershed. But we're a long ways from that happening. So most of the rain that we need to feed into Lake Travis more directly comes from Llano and Mason counties and farther to the west, and also Gillespie and Blanco counties too. Very little of the rain that we actually get in Travis, Hayes, and certainly Williamson County actually makes it into Lake Travis unless it falls just north or just south of Lake Travis. You really need that rain to fall in the hill country for it to work its way into these two main water sources for Central Texas. And if it rains in Austin, while it helps limit the amount of irrigation that people need for their lawns, it really doesn't help our lakes at all. Mm-hmm. So it allows you to maybe turn off your sprinkler system for longer. That's a benefit because it means that we're not drawing as much from the lakes. But what we need is the heavy rain, the downpours to continue to fall in this big area right here and then work their way into our two main water sources, Lakes Buchanan right here and Lake Travis right here. And we're cautiously optimistic about the rainfall over the next few days helping us. But, it remains to be seen just how quickly that rain falls. The soil can still absorb more. Yeah. So we still really need that very heavy rain in order to make that happen.
Well, Nick, that brings me to my next question. If we do need this rain, what is the average summer rain for Austin this year?
Yeah, well, that's why we need the rain so badly now, is because the rain really drops off on an average year anyway, as we get toward the end of June and especially July. June is actually our third wettest month of the year. Mm-hmm. It goes May, October, then June. It used to be May, then June, and then October. But more recently, over the last, say, 10 years or so, we found that the rain in June has started to drop off significantly. So now it's our third wettest month and not our second wettest month of the year. But it does set us up for one of our driest months of the year being July. It is not our driest month. That's actually February, but it's up there, July. And then August, especially the second half of August, we start seeing some of the rain and storms return as we head into our second wet season that runs into September, October, into a little bit of November. And some of that comes with tropical rainfall as well that we can rely on, but can be very hit or miss. But this is why it's so key that we get this rain this week, as if we can have any say in it, right? But it's why it's so important that the rain materializes as we hope it will and think that it will over the coming days, because we know that right around the corner is such a dry and long stretch as May.
And what does it take to fill those lakes? What did our May look like this year?
Yeah, so our May was wet. We had that graphic of the May rainfall. Mm-hmm. But what does it take to fill the lakes is that it's all about where the heavy rain falls and how quickly it falls. And you can't just say one number of rainfall inches and say that'll fill the lakes, because it's all about when and where and over the time period. We can, though, talk about the wet weather that's coming. We, of course, had some rain here this morning. About an inch or so fell in some of the highest rainfall totals in Mason County. That rain is now long gone off to the northeast of us, but there's more opportunities for rain ahead. There's actually two areas where we may get some thunderstorms this evening and overnight. And let me highlight the first one here. The first opportunity for rain is going to come with this smaller cluster of storms near San Angelo that is not looking super beefy at this point, but it may provide a few weaker thunderstorms into parts of the hill country. We'll have to keep an eye on this one. The one we're more confident about eventually bringing rain and storms our way is coming from this general area here, well out west of us. This is expected to grow into a bigger cluster of storms and then move eastward through the evening and get into parts of our hill country, say about 9, 10 o'clock tonight. Yeah, and then into the early hours of tomorrow morning. So the storms that came in this morning came in during the daylight hours of the morning. The storms that we expect tonight will actually come in while it's still dark out. So a little bit of a earlier arrival of the storms here tonight. And in fact, I can show you how those storms blossom with one of the better performing computer models that we have. This one here really blows up that cluster of storms to the west of us. We may see some isolated storms here in central Texas before 9, but as far as a bigger cluster of rain, that will come later in the night as we get, say, between, say, 9 and midnight into the hill country. And then those storms try to get into the metro between about midnight and 4, and then more storms starting to pull away later in the morning. But we think there'll be some additional rounds of wet weather and storms on and off through the day tomorrow. And then potentially more storms as we get into tomorrow night and into Thursday. And then more on and off storms on Thursday and possibly into Friday. So there's so many opportunities for rain and storms. And Esme, have you ever used, I'm sure you have, Domino's before?
Domino's, the delivery service?
No, the actual Domino's.
Oh, yes.
Yes, they use the same logo as a domino. But if you stack them one by one by one by one, and sometimes you can make them set up so that you knock one over and then they all fall over.
All trickle down.
Right?
Yeah.
If you take one of those dominoes out, then the whole, second half of your dominoes plan falls apart, right?
Yeah.
So that is sort of the way that we're thinking about these rounds of downpours and storms, is that one round has an effect on the next round, has an effect on the next round, and the round after that. So if one of these rounds doesn't quite play ball like we're thinking, it sticks around too long, it weakens what's happening in the atmosphere, it sucks up a lot of the atmospheric juices and prevents the next round from forming, then it can have an impact on the timing of the next round and coverage of the next round and so on and so forth. So it is still very difficult to make a reasonably good timing forecast for storms beyond, say, 24 hours, 36 hours under this setup, because how long the first round of storms lasts impacts the next round. And there will be built-in errors that develop as one round plays out and how it impacts the next round. But the general idea is on and off downpours and storms later this evening and overnight, and then again on and off during the day tomorrow and Thursday and possibly into Friday. And this could really add up for us, but it also could bring some concerns for us too, and that's why we're so concerned about flash flooding. But we're thinking some late night storms tonight with a flash flooding and severe weather risk. We think there'll be some rounds of downpours and storms tomorrow morning. They wrap up. Then we got another round later in the morning and into the afternoon and night. And each day has a flash flooding risk. It's a 2 out of 4 for most of the area tonight. It's a 1 out of 5 for severe weather tonight, large hail and damaging wind, the primary threats, although we think the higher severe storm coverage is going to be at the bottom left of your screen here and to our west. But then the flash flooding risk tomorrow is a 2 out of 4. And then as we jump into Thursday, it's a 2 out of 4. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe one of these days, especially Thursday, may introduce a moderate risk, a 3 out of 4, although they haven't yet. And then as we get into Friday, finally starting to see some of the heavier, longer lasting downpours starting to shift away. And then the flash flooding risk drops, but it's still a 1 out of 4 east and along of I-35. So we still have several days ahead of the potential for some flash flooding. So what we really want to hammer home, not only is this rain potentially beneficial, but it could be harmful as it brings this flash flooding threat. Even on Saturday, parts of Milam, Lee, and Fayette counties under a very minimal flash flooding risk. So what we want to talk about is what you can do before all these rounds of downpours and storms. And yes, we've had some of those rounds so far, but they haven't caused any real problems yet. But as we continue to see more rounds of downpours and storms, we may have trouble. And flash flooding is our higher threat today. A couple of weeks ago, in fact, last week even, it was round after round of severe thunderstorms. This time we're more concerned about flash flooding. So before any flash flooding arrives where you are, good idea to bring in the patio furniture or secure it so that it doesn't blow away with any thunderstorms, first of all, or even wash away with some of the heavier downpours. If you've got outdoor appliances, you may want to unplug those. Having an emergency kit should the flash flooding occur and say you live near a stream and a creek, and then you're forced to evacuate, or you've got power outage issues, that sort of thing. Flashlight, first aid batteries, always good to have. Make sure that those that you know in your circle, family and friends, are in the know about the potential for flash flooding, because not all of us are as in tune with the weather and the news as we should be. Although, Esme, I know you're always in tune with the weather here because we talk about it so much with you.
We do, and everyone can also talk about it with us if they download the KXAN Plus app on their streaming TVs.
That is a great plug. KXAN Plus on your streaming TVs, Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick too.
Yeah.
So many good options there. And great ways to stay informed too. If you missed one of our weather casts, let's say, and you want to go back and watch it, you can use your smart TV for that. Multiple ways to receive severe weather warnings on top of watching us on our KXAN Plus app is the KXAN Weather app. You can also make sure that you're getting those wireless emergency alerts that come from those are government-initiated alerts through the National Weather Service, of course, but those are things you can turn on that are already built into your phone. Weather radios are great things to have too, although locally our weather radios are undergoing an upgrade here this week, so best to have other sources of weather information.
The app is a good one because the notifications on that app are completely customizable. So if you only want to know about flash flooding, you can turn that one on, or thunderstorm, anything you want to tailor it to.
Yeah, and turning on that tornado one is always a good one too, or higher end severe thunderstorm warnings, flash flooding certainly. Well, it depends on how I say this. There's not a lot of good that comes with flash flooding.
Nope.
But it can help to restore our lake levels. If there is some good out of flash flooding, it's that most of the time, not always, but most of the time, staying at home is the safest place to be because you're not having to drive around through potentially flooded streets, some low water crossings that you don't know are covered in water until it's too late. This could be a particular danger at night. So if you have a flash flood warning and you're already at home, you're probably safe to just stay there unless you're told to evacuate, unless you've got streams and creeks near you that are rising. So staying at home is usually a good bet there. But if you are driving out and about and you get those alerts on your phone while you're driving, turn around, don't drown is key. So many of the deaths that come with flash flooding here in the United States are from people in their vehicles that think that their car can get through that, what looks to be just like a puddle, or, oh no, it only looks a foot or two deep. I think I can plow through it. No. You'd be surprised how little water it takes to actually make a car lift up off the ground. Just as little as 6 inches can do that. SUVs, trucks, a foot or two can move your car, especially if the water's rushing. And you just don't know the status of the road under what looks to be a puddle too. If the road's been washed out underneath and you think, oh, there's road under there, but the road is gone, you don't know that. It's been washed away. So some things to think about here as we head into what could be a busy next couple of days. And now that the sun is out, clearing the gutters that you have, the storm drains in your neighborhood's not a bad idea either. Those gutters may have some leaves, some clogs. The storm drains may get clogged up too. And if there's a lot of water rushing into them here and they're already clogged up, that may cause some street flooding that wouldn't necessarily happen. And as we get more rain this week, remember to turn off your sprinkler system so that we can conserve this water and let it stay in our lakes rather than spraying our lawns and plants unnecessarily. Did you know, by the way, Esme, that in the summertime here in Central Texas, LCRA estimates that about 70% of our home water usage on average goes to watering our grass?
Really?
Yeah. So if we can cut out that, especially during these unnecessary times, don't you just hate it when you're driving around and it's raining and you see sprinklers going while it's raining?
It's useless.
Doesn't that grind your gears as much as it grinds mine?
I'm sure it grinds your gears a little more than me.
Yeah. So pay attention to the weather that's happening, that's forecast where you are, and the rainfall that has fallen where you are. Turn off those sprinklers when you can and when you've had enough rain where you need to be so that we can keep that rain in our lakes. And coming up at 4 o'clock, meteorologist Freddie Vela is going to have an update on the storms and downpours into the evening. I'll be taking over the coverage at 5, and there'll be some higher likelihood of storms as we head later into the evening and overnight. So stay with us here tonight and stay weather aware.
Yeah, and Nick, I like that you touched that the safest place to be is in your home.
Yeah.
It looks like these storms are going to be happening overnight, so please, please, please be weather aware,
Yeah.
stay home, stay off the roads. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, certainly this evening's round come later in the evening and overnight. There will be some additional daytime rounds, probably tomorrow and Thursday, though. But the last couple of rounds of storms have mostly been an overnight and morning thing. That may start to change tomorrow into Thursday, though. And that may add a different element that we've been dealing with because way more people out on the roads. And certainly with flash flooding and more people driving, that becomes a bigger concern for us. But KXAN is the place to get all the information you need. KXAN.com is where I actually have this article all about the lake level projections. You can take a look at some of those fancy maps. The lake levels, that map there is accurate as of last night. It's actually, we've seen our levels go up even more since then, which is good to see. But KXAN.com, weather and traffic tab, then click on the weather blog, or you can also get it on the homepage there. Looks like it's the number 3 trending story right now, Esme.
Yeah, I saw that right before starting the stream.
There you go. Everyone's interested in the lakes, as we are too. We just got to be careful during our threats for flash flooding the next couple of days, but we'll keep you informed as best as we can.
Yes, and this rain coming up that we are expecting is going to be a big part in our summer fun this year, right?
Yeah, if let's say if we weren't going to get this rain, and if we hadn't had the rain over the last few weeks, that would dry out our soils, typically makes for a hotter summer, and that's not necessarily what we're wanting here. So if we can get the rain now, which can both help our lakes and moisten up our soil, it should help to mitigate at least some of the heat that we would expect in the summer, although it's still always going to be a hot summer.
It's always a hot summer here in Austin. Well, thanks for joining us, Nick. We'll see you on air right after this.